The Vietnam War did not begin with soldiers. It began with history. For centuries, Vietnam had resisted foreign control, first from China, later from France. By the early 20th century, Vietnam was part of French Indochina, ruled as a colony. During World War II, Japan occupied the region. When the war ended, Vietnamese nationalist leader Ho Chi Minh declared independence in 1945, hoping to build a unified, independent nation. France refused to leave. This led to the First Indochina War, ending in 1954 when Vietnamese forces defeated France at Dien Bien Phu. Vietnam was then divided temporarily at the 17th parallel. North Vietnam, communist-led, supported by the Soviet Union and China. South Vietnam, anti-communist, supported by the United States and its allies. The division was meant to be temporary, with national elections planned. Those elections never happened. At first, U.S. involvement was limited to advisors and financial support. But by the early 1960s, fighting between North Vietnam and South Vietnam escalated. In 1964, after the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the U.S. Congress approved expanded military action. American troops soon arrived in large numbers. The war became long and complex. It was fought through conventional battles, guerrilla warfare, and prolonged campaigns. The conflict affected cities, countryside, and civilians across Vietnam. At home, public opinion in the United States began to shift. As casualties rose and progress seemed unclear, protests grew. The war became deeply controversial. In 1968, the Tet Offensive shocked the world. Although militarily costly for North Vietnam, it showed that the war was far from being won. Confidence in the conflict declined sharply. In the early 1970s, the U.S. began a policy known as Vietnamization, gradually withdrawing troops while transferring responsibility to South Vietnamese forces. In 1973, the Paris Peace Accords were signed, and U.S. combat troops left Vietnam. But the fighting did not stop. In 1975, North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon, ending the war. Vietnam was reunified under a single government. The war left lasting consequences. Millions of lives were affected across Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. In the United States, the war reshaped politics, media, and public trust in government. Globally, it became a defining moment of the Cold War era. The Vietnam War remains one of the most studied conflicts in modern history, not just for how it was fought, but for what it revealed about power, resistance, and the limits of military force. It was not just a war of armies. It was a war shaped by history, ideology, and human cost.